Welcome to Lessons from the Cockpit. I'm Belinda Sandor. Today we're going to talk about how much should you invest in your virtual assistant business. Let's get started. Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. For those of you joining for the first time, I'm Belinda Sandor, the founder of the VA Connection, where I coach and mentor aspiring and established virtual assistants to create, grow, and scale their VA businesses. And I work with my students in my free online community, courses, and coaching programs. And I'm thrilled that you're here today. I'm going to be your host of Lessons from the Cockpit, which is my weekly live stream show that airs every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. So welcome. I'm going to share tactical and practical information for you. And I'd love to hear where you're coming in from. So let me know in the comments. Now we're streaming on our Facebook business page, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. And I'd love to know where you're coming in from and also where you're watching. So I see George is here. Hello, George. It's nice to see you. Now today we're going to talk about a mistake that virtual assistants make when starting a business. And then I'm going to teach you how to avoid it. It's very common. It's kind of wrapped in with imposter syndrome, as a lot of things are. And we're going to dive in. But before we do, I want to introduce myself. So this is me and my daughter, Emily, back in 2010 when I was just starting my VA business. And I was very off track at the time. And you know, what's interesting is, so I had all these milestones that I wanted to reach. I was about to turn 50 and, you know, I wanted to be happily married. I wanted to be a homeowner. I wanted to have retirement savings underway, you know, all of these things that logically help you slide into the next phase of your life. But what was happening instead was I was getting divorced. I had to sell my house. I had a lot of debt because of a business that failed and trying to support my family. While the business was failing, and I had, you know, I had to figure out what I was going to do next. But the thing that was so interesting was, and I didn't realize this for a long time. In fact, it's a relatively new realization. What was really happening was I lost myself. You know, I lost what was important, and it's almost been not until I've moved into our new home, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, with Greg, and I've started to explore all of the things that I'm interested in, that I realize how at home I finally am and how connected to who I am. I am in the moment, and it's been a very interesting journey, and it started here. And it started here at 50 when I didn't have any of the things I wanted. I had my daughter, of course, I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to be her mom forever. But just in terms of the path my life was on, you know, we're either sort of, even if it's slightly, we're either going this way or we're going this way. And I was definitely headed this way. And so I had to make some hard changes in my life. And one of the things I did was I closed the business that was failing. I looked around me and I said, you know what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I made some big changes in my life because I started to listen to what was inside me. I was so, I was like out to sea. You know, someone would say, you should do this, you should do this. And I had so many people telling me what I should do. And I was just like a ping pong ball, you know, bopping a lot, or a pinball, actually, you know, trapped inside this cage, not knowing what to do. So I decided to sort of separate myself and to really start to listen to what I wanted and what was important to me. And I decided that I still wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have a business. I wanted a successful business. And I leaned into what I'm really good at, which is figuring stuff out, helping people, being in service. And while I didn't have a ton of technical skills, I am someone who can, you know, figure it out with, you know, well, Google didn't actually exist back then, but, you know, a search on Yahoo or reading a book, or, you know, figuring it out by just looking at something and kind of, you know, pulling the strings, like, well, what happens if you click here? And what happens if you click here? And I just found so much pleasure in that. So I decided that I wanted to turn that into a business, which eventually turned into virtual assistants, right? I didn't know what that was back then in 2010. And I think very few people did. And so I leaned into it, and I started to tell people about my business because I hired a coach, I hired a mentor. My coach helped me mostly with mindset. My mindset was not where it needed to be in order to be successful. And I had a mentor who was helping me with the tactical pieces. And what he told me was I needed to get in front of everybody that I knew. I needed to grow my email list. I needed to stay in touch with people I already knew. And I needed to be able to talk to them about my work in a clear, simple way so that they would understand. And that's what I'm teaching you here and what I taught you all last week in our special training. So I want you to think about how you can do that, how you can lean into this business if it's time for you. Because as a business owner, 13 years later, I have 20,000 billable hours under my belt. I've worked with 225 clients and earned over $1 million. And I did that by getting into action. I did that by asking for help and best practices and, figuring out what was going to work. So I want to see what Dana says. I find that the things you want can change depending on the phase of your life, as well as the level of growth and personal development you are at. Life experience also contributes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know so many of you have been telling me you want to start a business. I mean, I have terrible cell phone reception in my house. I got to handle that. But in the meantime, so many of you have wanted to talk to me yesterday, like 4 or 5 of you. So I'm outside on the deck where I get better service talking, and I'm listening. And what I'm hearing is, I want to do this, but I'm so scared. I'm stuck. And I'm just thinking, what are we waiting for? Right? What are we waiting for? It was kind of like that with this house that we live in. Greg, he was nervous about the change. He had lived in the same part of the country for the vast majority of his life. He had his people, his support systems, and he kept saying 5 years. 5 years. And one day I just looked at him and I said, dude, like, I didn't say dude, but that's what I was thinking. You just turned 63 years old. Are we waiting till we're 68 to live where we want to live? Like, what are we doing here? And I invite you, no matter how old you are, whether, you're in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, what are you waiting for? Jump in to what you want. Don't be like me and wait till you're 50. And if you have waited till you're 50 or even 60 or 65, it's still not too late, but don't wait until then if you don't have to. Okay. And so I leaned in, I told people about my work. It was way out of my comfort zone, but it paid off. It paid off. And it allowed me to be in a relationship with Greg, who lived 3 hours away from me, because my work was all virtual. So I could work in Connecticut, I could work in Boston where I lived. And I had total flexibility because he had a job in New York City. He had to get on the train every morning and every night. It was like, I don't know, 2.5 hours all in for him on the train. And I had the flexibility. So that's one of the things that really, propelled my business, was my desire to make it virtual and to be able to be location independent. So when it was Emily's spring break, we spent the whole week in Connecticut, 3-day weekends, we were down there, and I was able to be billable and productive and in a relationship long distance, right? It worked very well. So this is us on our wedding day, about 2.5 years ago now. And, I knew Greg in high school, and we didn't see each other for 30 years. Was it 30? Yeah, 30 years. We re-met at a reunion. It's a longer story, but you can have what you want. And I swear, this is the man I've been looking for since I was, a young woman. I just always wanted to be with someone who was driving around with a station wagon with a bunch of kids in the back and a Christmas tree on top. And that's who this guy is. And now we became grandparents on Sunday. Greg drove up to meet, we now know his name, Henry Hugh Sandor, which I love. And Greg met him yesterday, and I'm going to meet him on Saturday. We're going to drive up. They're only about 3 hours away, which is so nice. So nice. What a luxury. So don't wait, dive in. And this is the result. We bought this beautiful farmhouse. Every surface needs to be fixed. There's no HVAC. And I have to tell you that it is my sheer joy and pleasure to work on it. I'm going to take a woodworking class in a couple of weeks to learn how to use tools. And I just want to get my hands in here. And I'm going to set my sewing machine up in the next few days. and just dive back into, all the things that I left behind really in my 20s, and get back to the things that are important to me. So really important. All right. So what I want to talk about today is investing in your business. So let me just check the chat real quick. All right, good. So Kathy's here, Pamela's here. Awesome. Good. This is great. Good. All right. So I want to talk about this concept of overinvesting. All right. So this is kind of the good news and the bad news. So Greg and I moved from Connecticut to Virginia. We started migrating our stuff down on January 29th, and it took us until really March 31st to get the last of our stuff here. That's when we brought the chicken coops down and all the things and the chickens. And so it's been this sort of love-hate relationship, because the thing about moving is you have to touch everything you own, and you have to touch it twice, right? You have to put it in the box, and then you have to take it out of the box. And it's really interesting because in one way, it's really nice. You're like, oh, I love this thing that I have. This is so great. And then there's other things, that you take out of the box, and you're like, why did I buy that? Why did I buy that? Why am I storing that? Why do we have that? And we've been moving those things out of the house, but it can engage a relationship with money, right? Because sometimes, we pull something out, and I remember I thought my life wasn't going to be the same without it. And not only did I not use it, I invested maybe $50, $100, fill in the blank for it without really needing it, right? And so it just becomes something to take care of. And I think that and here's what it got me thinking about was how easy it is to spend money on tools in your VA business when you don't need to, right? And I've gotten much better as I've gotten older to look at things and say, am I going to actually read this book? Do I want to take care of this coffee mug? I know that sounds silly, but it's like, what do I want to surround myself with in my life? And it's the same in business, because here's the thing, as a virtual assistant, I had several clients, maybe many clients, who would buy tools with this whole FOMO thing, right? Fear of missing out. So there'd be something on sale at AppSumo, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. And they buy it for $30, $50, in some cases, $800 I've seen, and they don't need it at all, or they have subscriptions to software like, social media schedulers that are $500 a year, and they're not using it. But I understand why. Because I once had a 2-year subscription to Audio Acrobat because I was going to start a podcast. I was treating it like a gym membership. It wasn't set up. It was just sitting there, and I was paying $20 a month. Now, the reason I did that was somehow in my brain, I got the idea that if I canceled the subscription, it meant I wasn't going to do a podcast, which I never did. Okay. But somehow it never occurred to me that I could cancel it. And then when I was really ready to do the podcast, I could jump in. Instead, I spent, what is that? $480 over 2 years, which, it's like, you can say $20 a month, no big deal. Or you can say $480. That's like a couple of car payments, right? So I want you to think about that, because here's the thing, having a bunch of fancy tools and apps, it helps quiet imposter syndrome, right? Because you think, all right, well, I've got this thing and all these tools, but it doesn't mean you're in business for real just because you have them. What makes you in business for real is having clients and bringing in revenue. That's what makes you be in business for real. So I want you to think about that. Okay. So when I first started, it's kind of like, when you're playing Office, you have like a stapler and a tape dispenser, and you have a thing for your pens, when we were kids, and you had a steno pad maybe, but you don't want to do that with things, apps and software that you don't need. For the most part, the client is going to provide the software that you need in order to do the work. All right, let me move this out of the way. In order to do the work. So when I first started out, I had a laptop. It was loaded with Microsoft Office, which I highly recommend. I had a notebook and a pen and my phone, and that was it. And it's like I said, it's easy to get caught up. I remember one time I met with one of my VA school students for breakfast. I was in her city and we connected, and she said to me, "Man, starting a virtual assistant business is really expensive." And I said, what, like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, I take a course in this and a course in this and a course in this. You don't need to take all these courses. What you need to do is run your business successfully. So that's how VA school is different. VA school is all about how to run your business, your pricing, how to talk to clients, how to get clients. The pieces of the puzzle that are the work usually don't need that much training, if any. YouTube, there are universities, like there are applications like, for example, Kajabi. If anyone wants to learn Kajabi, there's a Kajabi university that's free. QuickBooks, MailChimp, there's a free certification for MailChimp. But you can also just learn it on your own a little bit at a time if you can quiet your brain enough to do that. So you don't need to invest in all of these trainings and all of these tools, but you do need to invest in making sure that you're running your business like a business so that you can make the money that you want and the money that you deserve. Okay, good. So here's some guidelines for deciding on what tools you need. Okay, notice where you're struggling. Okay, if you can take paper and pen and keep it straight and keep your notes going, yay, you're set. I reached a point where the notebooks became cumbersome, so I started to look at note-taking software. Now there's a zillion of them. Evernote, OneNote, Notion, Google Keep. Just find the one that works for you. Okay, just find the one that works for you. And I want you to. I also want you to think about this concept of going small. All right. You don't need to immediately jump into an all-in-one. What I mean by that is like Dubsado, ClickUp, or 17 Hats. I've seen VAs who are new do that. And what happens is the all-in-one is the thing that's determining how they're running their business. You want it to be the other way around. You want to run your business and have the tools support you. Okay. Now, whenever possible, you want to start with free. It's not like the olden days where, you had to go to the store and upgrade. The thing is start with free, check it out, be clear on why you need the upgrade if you do, and then upgrade when you need to. All right. But you don't need to upgrade before that. So just keep that in mind, that it's easy to upgrade in the moment or add a new tool. Now, there's no right or best tool. There's the one that meets your needs and that's within your budget. Okay. So the most important tool in your virtual assistant business is your brain, your common sense, and your curiosity to figure things out. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. Good. So any questions? Yes. Debbie says, keep things simple, right? Keep things simple. It's so important. The reason that most businesses fail is we overcomplicate them. You want to just bring it down to simple all the time. Okay. So lots of information about tools there. And I just want to let you know that enrollment is open for VA school until tonight at midnight. We have a whole bunch of people who've signed up. The registrations are actually flowing in this morning, which is very exciting because I've spent so much time with many of you. And it's just great to know that we're going to continue the work that we did last week in our Kickstart Challenge and continue to work together in VA school. So if you are still interested in checking out the replays, they're going to be available until midnight tonight. You can do that at vakickstartreplay.com. We have mindset sessions. We have the 5 trainings from last week about your services, how to talk about your work, really mission critical things when it comes to growing your business. Yesterday, we did a whole session. So many people attended, all about the debit card system. And today we've got a lineup. We've got 3 things going on. At 11 o'clock this morning, Eastern, in about 10 minutes, we're going to do a mindset session. At noon, we have a session all about the done for you email newsletter system. Don't miss that. Okay, really important. And then tonight, we're going to wrap up with an open house on Zoom where I can answer all of your questions. Okay. All right. Thank you for coming to Lessons from the Cockpit. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you next week at the same time. Check out VA School at vaschool.info, vaschool.info, and let me know if you have any questions. All right. Bye for now.